When you're new to some task, like lifting, for instance, there are always several tips, tricks, hacks, whatever you want to call them, like not having your dog stand right in front of the camera, that will appear eventually obvious to you, probably several years later. So in an effort to speed up things for you a little bit if you're a new lifter, here are several tricks or tips that might prove useful to you right now. First up, an alternative use for your wrist straps. If you have to deadlift on an unlevel floor, and at our previous location here for Testify, we got a lot of experience with that, you can simply use your wrist straps to keep the bar from rolling. So this floor is actually level, but if it wasn't and the bar kept rolling away from me, I could simply place this strap right here, this wrist wrap, and place it in front of the bar. And that'll provide enough resistance, unless you've got an extremely unlevel floor, in which case you need to do something about that, but that will prevent the bar from rolling forward. Now, what you don't want to do is you don't want to use something like a 2.5 pound or a 5 pound metal plate. Here's the problem. When you set it down, if you happen to catch, if I put this plate over here, and you happen to set it down right on the edge, that bar is going to come glancing off that plate, rolling back at you, at your shins specifically, and barbells and shins do not get along very well. The shin always loses. So don't use a hard object. You can use other soft objects besides a wrist strap. You can use socks, you can use lifting straps, you can use sponges if you wanted to, but don't use a hard object. The other disadvantage here is when you're setting another metal plate down on top of another metal plate, a little bit redundant there, there's also a chance that one of the plates will chip. So just use something soft, like a wrist strap here. It's soft enough that you're not going to damage anything. It's not going to come glancing back at you, which is really good. But also, it's thick enough that the barbell's not going to roll anywhere. Next, while we're on the topic of whether or not to use 2.5 pound plates, stop using 2.5 pound plates for your warm-ups. As you get stronger, you're going to find that you can round most, if not all, of your warm-up weights to numbers that end in 5, like 45 pounds, 55 pounds, 165 pounds. You get the idea. By doing so, you won't have to use the 2.5 pound plate. You only use 2.5 pound plates for numbers that end in 0. As you get stronger, you're going to find that your warm-up weights don't require quite that level of precision. So rounding to a 5 instead of a 0 isn't going to pose a problem. Now, later in your warm-ups, if you want to use a 2.5 pound plate for maybe like your last warm-up or something like that, that's perfectly fine. But in general, you probably won't need them, and it will simplify your warm-up process. Now, if your work weights are less than 100, you might find that you're going to use the 2.5 pound plates quite a bit. But likewise, comparatively, analogously, you probably won't need to use the 1.25 pound plates. You might use them for your work sets, but you're probably not going to use them for your warm-ups. Moving on to the next one. Stop resting between your warm-up sets. We have mentioned this a lot, but it still bears repeating. You really don't need to rest in between your warm-up sets. The very act of changing the weights will give you enough rest. If you're doing 2 empty bar sets, go ahead and rest, 15, 20 seconds, shake out your shoulders or something like that if you're squatting in between your empty bar sets, but then get to the next set. Then add some weight, squat again. Add some weight, squat again. Again, the act of changing the weights will give you enough rest time because these are warm-ups. They're not heavy. Now, before you get to your first work set, yeah, you might want to rest a couple of minutes, and certainly you're going to rest in between your work sets. But between your warm-ups, just change the weight, go again. This is one of the main ways you can save time at the gym. And last, write out your next workout in your training log before you leave the gym. Now, as you gain experience, you may decide, or you may not, to ditch this habit, but especially when you're new, it's a real productive way to use your rest periods. You're already in training mode, so to speak, and the warm-ups that you perform today are going to inform and influence the warm-ups that you're going to use next time. So at the very least, go ahead and write out your warm-ups for next time. This way, you'll be ready for next time when you walk in the gym, and you won't have to think too hard. We hope this was useful, and if it was, please let us know. Hit the subscribe button or leave us a comment below or give us a thumbs up. We will see you next time, hopefully not on a day where it's 90 degrees outside and really hot in the gym. And as always, we hope this helps you get stronger and live better. First up, an alternative oh, that's great, Milo. Okay. That's maybe not put that on camera, huh? Let's not do that. First up, an alternative use for, thanks Parker, your wrist wraps. If you lift on an unlevel floor, and hopefully it's not too unlevel. Parker, what are you doing? Good boy. Oh yeah, you gonna bring Jerry with you? Yeah, thanks. Thanks, bud.